This week's hot topic, the NAR settlement. As you know, NAR settled with the plaintiffs. The settlement was for $418 million, plus an agreement to change the commission sharing practices. Here's what you need to know. By mid-July this year, we must put in place the following practices. Buyers must sign a written agreement to be represented by an agent and negotiate the commission to be paid to that agent prior to touring any homes. No commission amounts may be offered or shown on MLS. Consumers can still negotiate for seller to pay buyer agent commission, but negotiation for that cannot be through MLS or other site or portal designed to get around these MLS rules. Buyer's agent cannot receive more commission than agreed to in the buyer rep agreement, irrespective of any amount a seller or builder is willing to pay. Sellers can still offer through MLS seller concessions toward buyer closing costs, but commissions cannot be deemed closing costs. Listing agreements and buyer rep agreements must include a disclosure with conspicuous language expressly stating that broker commissions are fully negotiable. My advice, don't wait until July to plan for these changes. For buyer's agents, you need to start by clearly defining your value as a buyer agent and be prepared to articulate that. Showcase your expertise in negotiating contract terms beyond just the sales price. For example, if there are 25 points in the contract that you need to negotiate, talk about how you help a buyer negotiate on all 25. This is worth something. Understand your worth, which may vary depending on the transaction type, resale or new construction, the number of homes the buyer wishes to tour, and the specific needs of the buyer. Consider offering a menu of services tailored to each transaction to be able to negotiate with the buyer. And then embrace this opportunity to differentiate yourself. For listing agents, prepare a presentation for your seller based on actual data showing what helps their house sell more quickly. In the Northwest, the practice already changed and not every seller agreed to pay buyers commissions. Those houses stood on the market longer than those where seller agreed to pay the commission. Why? The number one hurdle to buying a home for a first-time home buyer is not interest rate, it is down payment. Most buyers don't have the cash to cover down payment, closing costs, and commissions. Help the seller make an informed decision about cooperative commission payments. The most frequently asked questions I've been receiving are: 1, how will the buyer's agent's commissions be collected? It will be collected at closing just like listing commission. If the buyer is to pay it, it will be on the buyer's side of the closing disclosure. The title company will need your commission disbursement form to know what to collect, as we will not be privy to the written buyer rep agreement. 2, what if buyer refuses to pay the commission at closing? This is no different than if a seller refused to pay his listing commission. Brokers' commissions are not liens on residential property. Recourse for failure to pay is a suit under a written contract. The buyer rep agreement is the written agreement. I don't think it's fair to be more concerned about a buyer not paying their obligations than we have been about the seller not paying. 3, how will this change affect the appraisals? If you think about it, appraisals are representations of fair market value, and fair market value is defined as what a willing buyer is willing to pay a willing seller in an arm's length transaction. So, if you think about it, the willing buyer will pay less for a house, and the seller will accept less for the house if the buyer pays his side of the commission. Appraisals will reflect this. Number 4, what changes will be made to the promulgated sales contracts? In my opinion, nothing has to change except maybe the broker information page, which is really not a part of the contract. It is information only. And the only change is the disclosure at the bottom of that page, which talks about the MLS offer of compensation, which will no longer exist. Otherwise, the contract itself doesn't need to change. Broker commissions are addressed under paragraph 8B of the contract and simply states, all obligations of the parties for payment of broker's fees are contained in separate written agreements. This doesn't change. Number 5, will the association change the listing agreement and buyer rep agreements to conform to the settlement? I am sure they will. However, each brokerage can also create their own form. All forms have to comply with the new practices and make the conspicuous disclosure about commissions being fully negotiable. The listing and buyer rep agreements aren't promulgated by the state, so your associations or your firm will prepare them. For a little understanding of the basis of the claims that led to this settlement, please watch my video I sent out on January 11th this year. You can look for it on our website at allegiancetitle.com under the title NAR Commission Lawsuit. In my 41 years in the title business, the status of agent representation has changed several times, and we have survived. First, there was sub-agency, meaning both agents represented the seller. Then we went to single agency. Then we went to dual agency. And finally, we added the intermediary relationship. We adjusted to each new practice and survived. We will adjust to these new practices, and I truly think we will be better for it. Be proactive. Start preparing for the changes now so the transition is seamless for you and your clients. Allegiance Title remains your partner in this transition. Thank you.